In a tense courtroom in May 2025, the state laid out its narrative. Prosecutors revealed that after the grim discovery on October 11th, 2023, Richard had been arrested and his story shifted dramatically. Initially, he had insisted he last saw Tina alive the morning she disappeared. He told detectives that on March 20th, 2017, he was working in the shed behind the house. When he came inside around 9:05 a.m., he found Tina at the bottom of the stairs in a white dressing gown, hacking at a wall of plasterboard with a chisel. According to Richard's new account, he calmly asked what she was doing, and without warning, Tina flew at him. With the chisel, he said he lost his footing, fell backward, and she fell on top of him, attempting to stab his head. All he could do in self-defense was grab a belt around her neck and hold her weight off himself. Within seconds, he claimed, Tina went limp and died in his arms. It was, he insisted, a freak accident, a lethal attack that was not his fault. Prosecutors pointed out significant inconsistencies in this version. If Tina had attacked with chisel, why had Richard not sought medical help for the dozens of defensive wounds he later revealed? He had told Gardai about scratches on his face, bite marks, and black eyes from her alleged outbursts, yet never called a doctor after March 2017. Why had he waited 2 days before moving her body into the shed freezer, and then 4 more days before burying her under the stairs? When pressed on the motive, Richard maintained that Tina had simply tried to kill him, a claim the jury would hear, though it was contradicted by everything else uncovered. As the trial unfolded, jurors saw the extent of the deception. They learned that on the morning of her disappearance, Richard had told people he was shopping in Dungarvan, but mobile phone records and CCTV proved otherwise. He was in Yule the whole time. Indeed, Garda CCTV showed him at the post office at 11:13 a.m. taking his social welfare payments, long after he said Tina left home. His phone pinged in a supermarket parking lot at 11:20 a.m., not on any island road to Dungarvan. More startlingly, the forensic accountant brought in by Gardai testified that there was no evidence the couple could ever have saved 26,000 euros, the figure Richard claimed Tina had stolen. Instead, it appeared he concocted that story to explain her disappearance. Witnesses also recounted Richard's strange behavior that week. He had been email corresponding with a zookeeper about adopting monkeys, telling a British organization that Tina really wanted 2 monkeys for their home. On March 20th, as if oblivious to the turmoil around him when he went alone to the Yule markets on Sunday, March 26th, the weekly car boot sale where Tina was always by his side, he claimed Tina was seriously ill and had gone to the UK for treatment. Others witnessed him hurriedly selling Tina's clothes and shoes in weeks after her disappearance, even though he had once said he cherished giving her everything and doting on her. The prosecution painted a chilling portrait. Richard had planned Tina's murder, then spun an elaborate web of lies. Expert testimony explained that the shallow pit under the stairs had been dug after the concrete floor was poured, evidence that whoever buried Tina had tampered with the structure. Forensic analysis of tool marks and broken floor slabs indicated someone broke through from below, suggesting Richard had prepared the site in advance, perhaps even before Tina died. The now cemented tomb in his living room stood as macabre proof of premeditation. Throughout the trial, Richard's changing stories were juxtaposed. The jury heard his earlier media interviews, where he cried publicly that he wanted her back, and insisted the press were vultures. Twisting his words, they contrasted this with what he told Gardai behind closed doors, where he remained calm and matter-of-fact about carving up Tina's body. His fiancée's statement that he wouldn't sleep without her telephone call was on tape, yet he had never made that call himself to assure anyone she was safe. In one recording, after the body was found, Richard could be seen physically shaking when told of the discovery, finally breaking down in tears and begging for Tina to answer him, all while Gardai knew she could never come home again. In the hushed courtroom, jurors observed every detail. Prosecutor Gerardine Small SC meticulously guided them through the timeline, drawing from CCTV clips, bank statements, mobile data, and witness statements. The defense, in turn, called its own witnesses, but could not dispute the physical facts. Tina's DNA under the stairs, the grinding of concrete on floorboard fragments, the missing soil in the backyard matching the grave under the house. The defense narrative hinged on Richard's version of Tina's attack, but with Tina nowhere to testify, and Richard's credibility shredded by contradictions, that story rang hollow. Witness after witness took the stand. A forensic pathologist explained the position of Tina's remains, curled tightly in the pit, and discussed the black plastic sheeting. A canine handler described how Fern the dog had alerted on the stairwell area, underlining that the discovery was driven by forensic science. Garda detectives recounted Richard's repeated claims that Tina was nasty and had a history of violence, casting it as justification rather than guilt. Friends and neighbors were called. One testified Richard had seemed oddly serene in the months after Tina's disappearance, even selling her keepsakes while publicly pleading for her to come home on television. A psychologist brought in by the defense noted Richard's past mental health struggles, hinting at possible breakdown, but could not explain the elaborate deception alone. The prosecution's voiceover crescendo and closing arguments contrasted the evidence with poetry. "You may never see Tina Satchwell again," Gerardine Small told the jury, "but she has spoken to us from under those stairs." She walked the jury through the acts of deception as if chapters of a novel. The false disappearance, the invented suitcase money, the phone calls, the interviews, the weird monkey email. Each lie was a brick in the wall that eventually came crashing down when the dog sniffed out the truth. She called into question Richard's emotional displays, the husband sobbing and promising the press he would live with the hope of Tina's return. Was he crying over his lost wife? She asked. Or the facade he knew was about to end? On May 10th, 2025, after days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. In a packed silence, the foreperson stood and announced that Richard Satchwell was guilty of murdering Tina Satchwell. A muffled gasp rippled through the courtroom. Richard's face remained impassive. In the final act of this grim saga, delivered with the stark poignancy of a documentary epilogue, Tina's memory was reclaimed. The story of her disappearance, once clouded by mystery and manipulation, was now laid bare. Her life, defined by love for her dogs and a gentle nature, ended without pity under the floor of her own home. The Netflix-style credits might roll on a quiet domestic scene, but the truth, uncovered by cadaver dogs and forensic archaeologists, cast a long shadow. In the end, it was the silence, the 6 years when Tina lay unheard, unseen, beneath the stairs, that spoke the loudest. The jury's verdict closed the case on a man who lived in quiet routine. His routine, it turned out, had been a silent accomplice to murder. Tina's voice, encoded in the evidence, in the memory of interviews, and the walls of 3 Bratton Street, had guided Gardai to justice. As a reflective voiceover might say, sometimes the clues lie in routine, and when routine turns sinister, it leaves behind a silence that only truth can shatter. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more.